In an age where lust is glorified and desire parades itself as liberation, humanity has forgotten the sanctity of union. What was once a sacred act of creation has been reduced to an exchange of sensations, quick, forgettable, hollow. Men chase bodies as if their worth depends on the number of conquests. Women offer their energy under the illusion of empowerment. Yet beneath the surface of pleasure lies a quiet corrosion of the mind, the spirit, the very essence of what makes a being whole. Master Dannon once said, "Each act of intimacy is not just physical, it's a merging of worlds, a contract between souls. Whenever a man and a woman come together in sexual union, something profound takes place beyond the flesh. The astral bodies, subtle extensions of mind and energy, intertwine and form what the ancients called the astral tube, this invisible umbilical cord of energy, cloud-like in color, and around 6 inches wide, manifests in the lower astral plane. Through deep meditation, one can perceive it, a living current, connecting two souls. With each repeated act, the tube grows denser, stronger, more binding. It is not merely symbolic. It is an energetic truth. The astral tube was not born of human imagination. It was designed by higher laws, woven by divine intelligence to fulfill one purpose: to nurture trust, love, understanding, and devotion between husband and wife. Even if two were strangers before marriage, this channel of light allows them to develop affection, patience, genuine care. It becomes the unseen bridge through which thoughts, emotions, and intentions flow, an energetic thread maintaining balance between masculine and feminine forces. Within it travels not only desire, but compassion, not only pleasure, but the subtle fragrance of commitment. Through this sacred mechanism, man and woman grow together, evolve together, and create the vibrational field required to raise new life into the world. But when man desecrates this sacred system, when he uses the same act for momentary pleasure, for conquest, for ego, rather than the honoring of spirit, the very energy meant to elevate him begins to destroy him. The astral tube, once a divine bond, becomes a web of chaos. Its threads extend across countless partners, binding his soul to fragments of others, scattering his essence into the abyss of forgotten names and unfinished emotions. He may call it freedom, but it is bondage. He may call it experience, but it is decay. In the pursuit of pleasure, he becomes less of a man and more of a shadow, haunted by the energies he has carelessly absorbed. And thus, the world celebrates what slowly consumes it, indulgence disguised as liberation, lust mistaken for love and emptiness, worshipped as freedom. The act of union was never meant to be condemned, it was meant to be understood. In its sacred form, it is the highest ritual through which two beings merge, not only in body, but in energy, soul, and destiny. Yet, in an age where the sacred has been stripped of its meaning, the same act has been reduced to mere indulgence. When a man engages in intimacy, before or outside of marriage, when he seeks temporary pleasure through casual encounters, or when he releases his energy in isolation through self-gratification, he disrupts the subtle laws that govern the harmony between the masculine and feminine forces of creation. The ancients taught that whenever a man and a woman unite, the astral bodies interlock through the formation of the astral tube, a conduit of light in the unseen world. This tube was designed by divine will, not to enslave desire, but to sanctify it, to channel it into something higher, something pure. Within the sanctity of marriage, this astral tube becomes the foundation of emotional stability, loyalty, and divine companionship. Through it flows love that is unconditional, thoughts that are transparent, and an energy of protection that binds two souls for mutual growth. It was never meant to serve lust. It was created to nurture unity. Yet, when this sacred mechanism is used outside of its purpose, when a man forms this connection with multiple women or through acts born purely of lust, the very same astral tube becomes a net of confusion. Each encounter births a new chord. Each pleasure leaves behind an energetic echo. And though his mind may forget the faces, his soul cannot. The unseen chords remain, vibrating with the residue of every emotional exchange, every fragment of desire, every unspoken attachment. Over time, the soul becomes entangled in a labyrinth of unseen ties, bound not by devotion, but by the debris of unfulfilled unions. Through repeated acts of casual intimacy, the astral tube thickens and densifies, not with love, but with distortion. What was meant to be a bridge between husband and wife becomes an open highway of mixed vibrations. The man begins to feel a quiet restlessness, a loss of peace he cannot name. He feels connected to many, yet truly belongs to none. The weight of countless energetic cords burdens his mind, dispersing his willpower, dulling his inner strength. He wonders why commitment feels suffocating, why his thoughts drift toward old desires, why he senses memories of women he no longer remembers. The reason lies not in psychology alone, but in the field of subtle energy that now binds him across time and distance. Even self-indulgence, the act of releasing energy in solitude, creates ripples within the astral body. The sacred seed, intended to rise upward through the chakras to awaken wisdom and strength, instead dissipates into the lower planes, feeding entities of desire and illusion. It is not morality that condemns this, but natural law. Energy, once released, always seeks form, and when misdirected, it manifests as confusion, anxiety, or addiction. In the same way that a river loses its power, when scattered across many channels, a man loses his vitality when he spreads his essence without devotion or purpose. The discipline of brahmacharya does not ask him to reject the act, it asks him to honor it. It teaches that energy must serve love, not craving, growth, not decay. Within marriage, that same act becomes a sacred exchange, a renewal of vows between two souls. Outside of it, it becomes a slow leakage of light, a silent erosion of will, a disconnection from one's higher self. And thus, the greatest tragedy of modern man is not that he sins, but that he forgets the sanctity of what he does, mistaking release for freedom, indulgence for connection, and lust for love. When two bodies meet, the world sees only the surface, the warmth of skin, the pulse of desire, the breath that quickens with longing. Yet, what unfolds beyond the eyes is far greater and far more binding. Every act of union, every exchange of intimate energy weaves an invisible thread across the astral plane. These threads are not metaphors, they are living currents of energy, real as gravity, subtle as thought. The astral tube, once formed, does not vanish. When the bodies separate, it lingers, humming quietly, beneath the awareness of both souls, transmitting vibrations of emotion, memory, and desire, across time and distance. When this act occurs before marriage, outside of its sacred bond, or with multiple partners, these astral tubes multiply, each one connecting the individual to another life, another field of consciousness. Over time, the person becomes enmeshed in a vast web of unseen connections, each vibrating with unresolved emotions. The more casual the encounter, the less awareness there is of the energetic exchange. And yet, the imprint remains. A man who moves from one partner to another believes he leaves the past behind, but in truth, fragments of him remain with each, and fragments of them stay within him. In moments of silence, he may feel sudden waves of longing, sadness, or unrest without reason. These are not random emotions, but echoes traveling through the chords he has created. The astral tube carries not only love and tenderness, it also transmits disappointment, jealousy, resentment, and pain. When relationships end with betrayal or emotional turbulence, those vibrations turn dense and heavy, darkening the channel that once carried affection. The more unresolved these emotions, the more energy flows through the tube in distorted patterns. This is why a man may still feel the shadow of his former partners in his dreams, his moods, or his thoughts. Though his physical life has moved on, his subtle body continues to interact with those he once touched, often without his conscious permission. Through meditation or deep reflection, some can even perceive this web, a tangle of cords radiating from the lower chakras, each one connecting to another soul across time and space. The greater the number of such connections, the more fragmented one's inner energy becomes. The result is not punishment, but consequence and increasing difficulty in forming deep, peaceful relationships, a restless mind that cannot find satisfaction, a spirit that feels dispersed and heavy. These astral tubes, depending on their intensity, can endure for years, sometimes decades. They remain active, transmitting subtle vibrations, even after all contact has ceased. When one former partner remembers the other, With intense emotion, whether love, anger, or regret, the energy travels instantly through this invisible link, stirring old memories or sudden emotional waves in the other. It is the unseen reason why two people who have not spoken for years may still dream of each other, still feel echoes of a forgotten desire. It is also the unseen reason why many find it difficult to bond deeply with a future partner. Their energy is still shared, divided, entangled with the past. This entanglement also weakens the natural discipline of brahmacharya within a person. It scatters the kundalini, the vital life force, across too many channels, leaving the soul fatigued and uncentered. Over time, this dispersal of energy manifests as anxiety, emotional instability, or an unexplained sense of emptiness. None of this arises from moral wrongdoing. It is the natural consequence of energetic law. When sacred energy is shared without devotion, it does not vanish, it multiplies in complexity, reflecting every intention, emotion, and wound. In this way, a man who seeks fleeting pleasure may unknowingly carry the echoes of many lives within him, a chorus of silent voices that cloud his mind and drain his strength. He does not need guilt, he needs awareness. For what was once sacred has not ceased to be sacred. It has only been forgotten. Every act of intimacy carries a vibration into the unseen. When it arises from devotion and sacred union, that vibration creates harmony. It strengthens trust, loyalty, and emotional balance. But when it is driven by impulse, scattered across multiple partners, or detached from love, it leaves behind subtle distortions in the field of consciousness. These distortions are not punishment. They are reflections of the energy we release. The universe, after all, is a mirror, and it returns to us what we project into it. The astral tube, once pure and radiant, begins to carry mixed signals, waves of affection interlaced with grief, attachment tangled with resentment. Each time a person forms a new connection without closing the old ones, the web of energy thickens. He becomes a receiver of countless emotional frequencies, many not his own. This constant transmission can manifest as anxiety, unexplained sadness, or a sense of being drained after intimacy. These feelings are not coincidence. They are the karmic echo of divided energy. In relationships born outside of sacred union, casual, transient, or purely physical, the intentions behind the act determine the quality of the cord. If the connection is formed through desire alone, without honesty or emotional depth, the energy that flows through it vibrates at a lower frequency. Over time, these cords become conduits of confusion, rather than communion. When separation follows, as it often does in such relationships, the emotions once shared do not dissolve, they transform. Love turns into longing, longing into bitterness, bitterness into restlessness. These vibrations continue to move through the astral tube, pulling at both souls, even after years of silence. A person may wake one morning, feeling inexplicably heavy or restless, unaware that the emotion is not entirely his. It is an echo from another who still thinks of him, or resents him, or silently desires his attention again. Such exchanges are invisible, yet profoundly real. They drain mental clarity, disturb sleep, and weaken one's spiritual equilibrium. This is the unseen cost of scattering one's sacred energy. The soul becomes a host to countless echoes, each one whispering a fragment of the past. The deeper consequence emerges when this web of energy extends into new relationships. A man who carries unresolved cords from previous partners often struggles to form a peaceful union with his spouse. He may love her, yet something unseen resists full connection. It is as if parts of him are still entangled elsewhere, responding to energies that should have faded long ago. His heart becomes divided between presence and memory, and the sanctity of his marriage begins to waver. These energetic imprints can persist for more than a decade, sometimes an entire lifetime, depending on the intensity of the bond. Even if one chooses a disciplined path, embracing brahmacharya, practicing restraint, and seeking spiritual purification, it still takes time for these cords to weaken and dissolve. Each one must be purified by awareness, forgiveness, and inner stillness. No external ritual can replace the quiet labor of self-cleansing. The same applies to self-indulgence and the culture of instant gratification that feeds it. When one repeatedly directs sacred energy toward fantasy or isolation, The mind becomes conditioned to seek pleasure without connection. Over time, this creates psychic exhaustion, a depletion of the Kundalini, the vital current that fuels creativity, purpose, and spiritual strength. It is not morality that warns against it, but wisdom, energy that should rise toward clarity, instead circles endlessly in the lower realms of desire. The karmic echo of such habits is subtle yet profound. It shows up as restlessness, lack of focus, or emotional numbness. A man begins to wonder why he cannot feel peace even in moments of comfort, why he feels connected to everything, yet anchored to nothing. The answer lies in the fragmentation of his energy field. His soul is stretched thin, reaching toward too many places, too many memories, too many incomplete bonds. True peace cannot exist in a divided vessel. Only when one learns to gather what was scattered, to withdraw his energy from the countless astral cords of the past, does silence return. And in that silence, he discovers what he lost, not innocence, but wholeness. The soul, once entangled in countless invisible threads, eventually begins to sense its own fragmentation. There comes a quiet moment, often after many years of seeking pleasure and never finding peace, when a man realizes that what he is chasing outside has always been a reflection of what he has lost within. This realization is not guilt, it is awakening. For everything that binds can also be undone, and everything that drains can be reclaimed. The ancient sages called this sacred process brahmacharya, not as abstinence for its own sake, but as the art of remembering the purpose of energy. It is a path of restoration where one learns to redirect the same life force once spent in desire back into awareness, creativity, and spiritual clarity. Through this redirection, the scattered currents of Kundalini begin to rise again. What was once leaking through countless cords now gathers like a river returning to its source. The first stage of cleansing begins with silence. One must become still enough to hear the echoes of old connections, to recognize which emotions are truly one's own and which belong to another. This awareness alone weakens the cords that once seemed unbreakable. The man who used to seek distraction in short-lived encounters now seeks depth, in thought, in breath, in solitude. Each moment of restraint is not suppression, but transformation. The energy once given to the world of senses begins to purify itself, and the mind, once restless, starts to glow with calm strength. In this stage, many face trials, memories surface, old desires stir, and emotional turbulence intensifies. It is the soul's way of releasing what it no longer needs. As the astral tubes fade over time, their dissolving is often felt as brief periods of fatigue, illness, or emotional sensitivity. These are not signs of failure, but of cleansing, the burning out of astral toxins accumulated through years of unmindful connections. The process can take years, sometimes more than a decade, depending on how deep the attachments once ran. Yet every act of awareness, every day lived in discipline, accelerates this return to wholeness. A man walking this path does not reject intimacy, he reclaims its sacredness. He learns that union is not forbidden, but meant to be approached with reverence and clarity. He learns that energy, when respected, becomes light, when misused, becomes shadow. The goal is not to flee from desire, but to understand it, to see through its illusion of fulfillment and recognize its deeper calling toward union with the divine. As the practice of brahmacharya strengthens, the body begins to transform. Its aura brightens, its presence deepens, and its vitality becomes magnetic. The mind clears, the emotions steady, and the will grows unshakable. Gradually, the once fragmented energy field becomes whole again, like a mirror polished of its dust, capable of reflecting divine light without distortion. The Kundalini, once trapped in the lower centers of craving, begins to rise through the chakras, illuminating the path toward higher understanding. It awakens dormant faculties of intuition, compassion, and wisdom. The man who once felt enslaved by his impulses now feels guided by an inner current stronger than any external temptation. His desires no longer control him, they serve him, channeled toward creation, purpose, and devotion. And as this transformation unfolds, the cords that once connected him to others begin to dissolve naturally. What remains is not loneliness, but liberation. The same energy that once sought pleasure now becomes peace itself. The same longing that once reached outward now turns inward, meeting the soul it had been searching for all along. In this silence, in this restoration of balance, he discovers the truth that no pleasure could ever provide, that freedom is not found in indulgence, but in mastery, not in forgetting the sacred, but in living as its expression. When the noise of craving fades, what remains is silence. And within that silence, a man begins to hear something he has long forgotten, the quiet rhythm of his own soul. It speaks not in words, but in presence. It tells him that he was never broken, only scattered. That love was never lost, only misplaced within 1,000 fleeting moments that never had time to take root. The journey back to wholeness is not a retreat from the world, but a return to truth. A man who understands energy no longer treats intimacy as conquest, he sees it as communion. He knows that each exchange of breath, each shared gaze, is sacred when entered with awareness. He no longer fears connection, but he refuses to engage in anything that weakens the temple of his spirit. His strength is quiet now, unshaken, disciplined, unyielding. The astral tubes that once tethered him to fragments of the past have faded like mist under sunlight. The Kundalini, once diffused and restless, now flows as a steady current of clarity through his being. His heart, no longer clouded by confusion, becomes a vessel for compassion rather than craving. And in this transformation, he realizes what true freedom means. It is not escape from desire, but the alignment of desire with truth. Such a man no longer seeks validation through the eyes of others. His sense of worth arises from his inner harmony. He walks among the world's temptations without being touched by them, for he knows that energy follows attention, and attention is the purest form of devotion. He gives his attention now to growth, to love that uplifts rather than consumes, to creation instead of chaos. He becomes an anchor of calm in a world that worships noise. The teachings of Brahmacharya and the awakening of the Kundalini are no longer abstract ideas, they are lived realities. Through discipline and inner work, he becomes the embodiment of balance, passion without addiction, love without attachment, strength without arrogance. This is the rebirth that the ancient masters spoke of, the resurrection of consciousness through purity of intention. The man who once lost himself in short-lived encounters now stands as a beacon for others who still wander in confusion. His life becomes his message. That wholeness was never about denial, but about direction. That true masculinity is not dominance, but presence. That healing begins not when one stops desiring, but when one stops being enslaved by desire. And as he looks back at his path, the mistakes, the lessons, the years of searching, he feels no shame, only gratitude. For every connection, every misstep, every illusion was a mirror that led him home. The past no longer binds him, it blesses him. The energy once scattered now burns as light within. And with that light, he steps forward, not above others, but among them, as a brother among brothers, inviting those who still suffer in silence to begin their own journey. He speaks now to the man still chasing shadows, still feeling hollow after the temporary thrill fades. He says, open quote, "You are not meant to wander lost in the echo of desire. You are meant to rise, to reclaim what was scattered, to walk with awareness and to love with reverence. Your energy is sacred. Guard it, refine it, and let it guide you home." Close quote. This is the call of dark truth therapy, a space where men no longer hide from their darkness, but learn to transform it, where strength is not in conquest, but in control, where healing begins with truth, not illusion. If you feel the pull to go deeper, to understand the laws that shape your inner world, to face the shadows that once ruled you, then your journey starts here. Join the brotherhood. Reclaim your energy. Rebuild your peace. Because freedom does not belong to those who seek pleasure, it belongs to those who master it.